Irfan, over to you. Please take away your prompt masterclass.
All right.
Stage.
Thank you so much, Chandrakoli, and thanks for setting it up. Thanks everyone for joining. I think we're grateful for being part of this fellow right now. Community-wise, there's a lot of things happening, and I think communities are one of the best ways to engage with people, learn from each other, and actually grow together as well. So this is an opportunity to work together and actually go through the prompt engineering masterclass that I have been able to deliver at multiple places, as well as in my own company today. And thanks for the opportunity to actually, do it here as well. So let's keep it engaging. I like to keep the class, open, interactive. I believe we learned so much from doing that together. So once I begin sharing, I'll go through the content, and then let's see if there's additional input that you guys have. Any questions you have, happy to answer during the session as well. So you can put in the chat window or raise your hand or let Chandrapoli know, and then we'll be able to respond that accordingly. All right, my screen should be coming up. All right, a little bit about me. So I've been in tech for about 14 years. I worked at Apple, Accenture, did consulting for some time. I worked at Stripe. I led their AI marketing platform and portfolio there. And today I work at Grafana Labs. I lead their AI marketing arm of the organization as well. So looking at everything from marketing standpoint, automation, as well as pipeline generation is what I lead at Grafana Labs today. Some of the expertise and main areas I lead is AI programs, looking at everything from implementation, proof of concept, use cases, all the way to enablement and adoption. And then I do a lot of workflow automation as well, using NetN and other tools, looking at how do we remove manual processes from our teams and be able to automate as much as possible. At the same time, looking at a lot of use cases that we collect. Where's the ROI? What makes sense to invest in? What does it make sense to automate? And what should be left manual as is? And what are some pitfalls that we see that would allow us to learn and become better as well? I also do career coaching on the side. We have been blessed, and I've been blessed to have a lot of mentors in my life in the past, to be able to have such a career and meet so many people and get into a place where almost like the career is very well written. So I give back, and I do a lot of career coaching for college students, professionals, anyone who wants to get into big tech. So I do resume reviews, interview preparation, behavior mocks, understanding from an engineering standpoint, how do you transition into the business mindset, going back and forth, system design. So anything I can do to communicate better, to become a good candidate to get into these big companies, I do a lot of helping there as well. So it's a way of supporting everyone else around us too. And I live in Orlando, Florida. I've been here for over 20 years, and the weather has been pretty good. It gets hot, but it is better than many places I've been visiting as well. So I do play tennis as well, as you can see. Very, very competitive and avid tennis player. I watch a lot of tennis as well. So if there's a tennis match happening, that's pretty big in terms of Grand Slams. Or if any of you play tennis as well, talk about tennis anytime, just reach out. Happy to jump in and, engage in that conversation. My LinkedIn is here as well, so feel free to join me. Add me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect and support each other as well. All right, so we talk about prompt engineering and masterclass of why prompting matters. One of the biggest things that we see today, before in terms of literacy, yes, reading, writing is important. I think, what happens today is prompting takes that spot in terms of you're able to prompt very well, your productivity, your output, your efficiency, and your quality becomes that much better. And this is the way we interact with AI today. There's a lot of things that AI can do, a lot of models can do, but the most important piece of that puzzle is to prompt well. This is the direction and the guidelines that you're providing in AI to be able to give you the results that you're expecting and not just anything that's out of the box. So the core of AI interaction today is directing the AI to be able to give you the output that you need. So you guide the model's behavior by directing it with specific instructions. This also allows you to maximize value and unlock AI's full potential. There's so much the model can do. There's so much data that exists. There's everything that, from an example standpoint, that's possible. The question is, how are you able to prompt it and direct it in a way that actually you can maximize the output and value that you receive from it? And then ensuring accuracy. As we have all seen, and we have tested this multiple times, there's sometimes output that are not of good quality. There's outputs that may be hallucinating. So how do you make sure there's accuracy, there's some level of quality and assurance that, this output makes sense, it's valid. Sometimes we have all seen that when we prompt and we get a result, sometimes it's biased and it just listens to what we want to say. So it's good to always have some kind of ensuring accuracy and quality in terms of our modeling and prompting as well. Now, because it's a skill set today and in the art of communication, one of the key areas that we see is clarity and precision. How do you make sure that your prompt works in a way that you're expecting it to work? Being very clear, direct, and precise would be key. So defining your objectives very clearly into what you're looking to do. You also would be able to give it some contextual awareness. It doesn't have the background that you're expecting yet. So when you're beginning a new interaction, you're beginning a new prompt, it is important to give as much context as possible so it has enough information to be able to build out the output that you're looking for. Any background information, any documentation that you have, all these different pieces come together into building a great prompt so the output is that much better. And then iterative refinement, testing and improving prompts. This is one area that I believe that if you can sit and try to improve prompt, there's an infinite way of doing it. There's always something better to improve and optimize that you might not end up finishing at any certain day. You can spend weeks iterating prompts, but you have to be able to tell yourself, listen, there is a time limit. There is some level of quality that I'm expecting. If I reach 75, 80, 90% of the output I'm expecting, I stop and move on. Because in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months later, that prompt will iterate itself and you'll have a new prompt to get the output that you want based on the learnings and feedback that you've received. So it's very key to kind of time bound yourself when it comes to iterative refinement, because we have seen that we can spend hours and hours refining prompts, but be mindful of how much time you're spending there as well. And then creative thinking, looking at a lot of different applications that we can have in terms of, the prompting that we can do, the output we receive, how else we can leverage the AI as well. Now, when we look at a framework for prompting, there's so many out there that we have seen. There's a PACE framework. There's a lot of framework and guidelines that have been shared by, let's say, OpenAI, Gemini, so many everyone's sharing. But in essence, there's few key areas that are very critical for the prompt to work effectively as well and providing instructions. So this gives you a format that's, for example, one of the best ways to do it, but it has a lot of elements. So one, for example, is role. Defining AI's persona. Who are you? Who do you want it to act as? Are you a marketer? Are you a lawyer? Are you a healthcare specialist? Are you a financial advisor? Any of these roles an AI is able to take. So being able to define a role and defining a persona significantly improves the output that you're looking for, because then it assumes that role itself. And then specifying your desired action and what task. What is the objective that you're trying to achieve out of this prompt? What are you trying to get an output at? So defining a very clear task. As a marketer, I want you to build a strategy. I want you to start creating a pipeline generation strategy. I want you to start creating content creation for ad copies for LinkedIn. Any of these examples, you have to be very specific in the task and action as well. And then you provide context and background. This is what I'm targeting. Here's an event that's coming up. This is when the event is planned. Here's the audience. So being able to now build context behind it allows the AI to be able to become better and actually be more tailored and personalized to the answers it will give you. And then format. What kind of format are you looking for? There's so many variations of formats you can provide, from documentation to slides to bullet points to short and long paragraphs. It can structure into so many different JSONs and coding languages as well. The question is, what are you expecting? What's your final output? The less you have to manually do things after, the better it is for you as well. And the more accurate and precise the prompt can generate an output that you're looking for. And then tone, set communication style in terms of who is the audience. And if you know the audience, what are they expecting? Is it an engineering and development audience? So the messaging should be tailored towards that audience. Is it more business and leadership focused? Is it a certain demographic? Is it a certain geographical location? All these different contexts that you're able to provide. When it comes to tone itself, should it be too formal and professional? You want it informal and casual. Any of these things that you're able to provide in terms of tone, it also helps. And the last piece, many don't use this often, but it helps a lot as well. Constraints. What are some limitations and rules that you would like to provide that the model should know not to go through? For example, I want this to be 100 words. The caption should be less than 50 words. I also want the template to follow a specific style guideline. I want, and sometimes, for example, you can also add negative rules as well. So don't be AI telling is a key one as well. Many people use no AI fluff, no AI telling. So all these M dashes and empowering, elevating. We have seen all these things over and over. And those who, for example, don't prompt well or just allow the first output to go through, we do see a lot of very easy to tell results from a lot of posts that we see and emails that are coming out that this was clearly generated by AI. Now, we all generate using AI, which is fine, but getting a quality output where you try to decide, wait, did AI write this or did the human actually write it, is a differentiator as well, right? So the better you become at prompting, the better your quality becomes, the more human you sound as well. So allowing the AI to do that is another skill as well to be able to discern the differences. Now, sure, these are almost 7 to 8 different elements that a prompt would need. Do you need all of them? No. Are there some key ones I would say are almost critical for every prompt you do? Sure. Role, task, output. At the bare minimum, if you're able to define a role first, which is how you begin, what's your task and the objective you're trying to achieve, and what output you're looking for. At the basic minimum, I would say these 3 are key to at least get something decent out. And then if you're able to add more, the better the output becomes. Another key aspect here is also examples. Examples plays a big role because when the output is generated, it's good enough. But if you have examples that you have seen that, for example, in a company where there's emails that have already certain style, tone, brand, and these emails have been vetted out by copywriters, they work really well, and those are good. And if you want your AI to automate all these emails moving forward, what you would do, take those 10, 15, 20 emails as examples and then provide it to the model as well. And let it know that based on these 10, 15 email, these are the examples I'm giving you how I'm expecting the output. So then what you see is with the context and the task and the elements and the constraints that you share, with the examples you provide, you have now significantly improved the output that you're expecting. And you're almost at that 95% level where you're able to ship things out without manual effort. Will there be a QA or human in the loop, for example, to check once in a while? Sure, you'll keep someone to just review the outputs once in a while. After that, you'll be able to be confident to ship these directly as well. All right, looking at the prompts that we had in terms of the elements that are required, this is a quick example of a side-by-side comparison. And this is a simple example because if you look at an example of a prompt that's not very good, people go, for example, that's too vague. Write about marketing, or write me a blog post about this topic. So a lot of times it's too vague, it lacks direction, and the output's very generic, which means that if 10 people were to prompt the same thing, the output would be very similar. However, when you want to be a good prompter, you now start tailoring the prompt to be able to be specific to you, that even if someone else does it and they change some context, it would be different as well. That's what gives value to a good prompt engineer to be able to get that output as well. So in this example, you act as a content strategist, draft a concise, engaging social media post. You have an output for a B2B SaaS company announcing a new AI feature. Again, you're giving it context. Use a professional, slightly enthusiastic tone. Include relevant hashtags and call to action to visit the product page. So the output would be significantly different and better because now you have a role, you have a task, context, you have a structured format, and you also have constraints as well. And I also want a call to action to do this. So if we put both of these models, for example, into OpenAI or any other model, you'll be able to see the output. So what I would like to do is make sure everyone thinks in this way, right? Every time you start prompting, pause for a second and think, what's your output? What role is it taking? What's the best way to do it? And then begin the prompt itself. And then you can refine it as you go. But your initial prompt, the way you start building it, plays a significant role into be able to get that output that you're expecting. All right, cheat code. So this is one thing I share with a lot of teams as well. And yes, it's ideal to be able to do all this yourself and be able to provide all this stuff. But it is also, it takes a lot of time and effort to make sure it's very well drafted. So the cheat code is use AI to generate AI. Basically, use the model to write your prompt. This is one of the best ways to make sure that you're receiving a very good prompt. However, the context has to still set up by you. So what we do today is instead of just you drafting the entire prompt yourself, give it enough context to create a prompt for you that you can use in the model itself. So a lot of times what I do is I do provide that, hey, I want you to act as a prompt engineer. Again, your prompt is still defining a role. I want you to act as a prompt engineer and write me a prompt that will be able to generate this output for this company, for this audience. So you're providing that almost in a natural language tone, so you don't have to be too structured. But the more context you provide, the better it is. Attach the examples and everything you need, and then allow it. And then sometimes you can also be very clear that I want these to be part of system instructions in Google AI Studio to be able to generate for the rest of the team. And these are system instructions that will be populating this output. So all these different contexts that you're able to provide, let the model know, and it will then generate for you a very good, clean, well-formatted prompt that will give you the result you're expecting as well. Does that mean that that's the only way to do it, or that is a foolproof method? I think it's a very good start to get a good prompt to begin with. And then it's up to you to be able to refine and make the prompt better where you're satisfied enough to be able to then share broadly. All right, so what's next? Let's say we do create prompts and we have a prompt that generates emails, generate context, are able to do this. The limitations you face then sometimes it's too much for one prompt. Now, if you're able to tell a prompt, look at this data set and analyze for me the segmentation of the next marketing event that I'm trying to target. Based on all this data that you have, generate for me 5 emails that we're able to target our audiences for this event, okay? And then you're able to then create a feedback form based on this event after it's done. So all these different, create for me 5 blog posts, create for me social media. A lot of times what happens is now you're putting too much into a single prompt, and the AI is not able to completely go through each and every instruction you're setting. So when it's too much at once, you now have to start breaking it apart. So this is the next level where I would say majority of the folks, for example, in prompting are building single prompts and are receiving single outputs. What you do to elevate to the next level is do prompt chaining. This is now you have multiple prompts in sequence to be able to give you a very high quality output based on a lot of different contexts. For example, your first initial prompt.
Sorry to interrupt, but before you get into the multi-step process, right? I think we have 2 very key questions that come up, right? One is from Sukhdeep, who is asking, which model do you recommend to give the best output when creating a prompt? Right.
Very good question, Sukhdeep. I can answer that one. So I think what I would recommend is the model you're going to use to get an output is the model you use to create the prompt. Example, if you are going to write a long form document or a report and you use Claude for that, go to Claude and create the prompt in Claude. If you're going to use OpenAI for an EA assistant or an assistant task that you need to complete, go to OpenAI and create that prompt in OpenAI. Ideally, create the prompt where you're going to use it.
Yeah. And the second question is from Stephanie, which kind of gives us a segue into what you're going to talk about, is when do you know a prompt is too much, right? She thinks that she overloads the model sometimes with all the instructions. So what do you have to say there?
Yeah, great question, Stephanie. I've recognized the same thing as well when I used to prompt, and I see it till today. What you'll notice is when you give a lot of these instructions and you look at the output, you'll realize two things. One, either the quality of the output will drop based on additional instructions and it wasn't the same as before, or it will miss instructions. So if you give it 5 different directions and 5 instructions to complete an output, you'll see it might finish 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5. That's where it's kind of telling you that, listen, this is too much for me to handle. Can you please, do a different prompt or something like that, right? That's where you'll realize that either the quality has dropped or it's actually missing directions because it's focusing on 3 things. It gives you the output, but the other 2, it just, glared over it. Or sometimes if it gives you the output, the quality is low. Great questions. All right, so now we look at chaining, and this is exactly the problem we all see as well in terms of when it's too much. And you'll see the quality drop, you'll see it's missing instructions. You'll prompt it again too, be like, hey, listen, I told you specifically to give me, a Twitter post that has less than 100 characters in addition to all this stuff. And it might just make something up, or it might just give you something that's not very relevant, or it's gonna miss the instructions completely. That's when you know that now your prompt goes from like a 1-pager to like 6 pages because you have so many instructions. So what you do here is now you begin prompt chaining. One is, for example, generating foundational output. So as the example I shared, that if you look at data analysis, provide for me segmentation, and I want to create emails and social media posts to be able to send to this audience, and then feedback form. Now, this is an entire end-to-end workflow that AI can do. However, if I put this entire event and all these different steps that need to happen from start to execution and feedback, it's going to be too much for the AI to handle, or it won't be good enough for me to be able to share it out publicly. Then what happens is now you break these into different segments. You create the first prompt as a data analyzer alone. That's it, nothing else. I'm giving you an Excel sheet or a Google sheet with all my email list based on geographical location, time zone, and all this segmentation. I want you to now create for me a table that segments my audiences into these different categories. That's the task of that single prompt. It's easy to do. It's quick to do. If that's the only instruction, it's going to do a very good job. Now it produces you a very good segment of audience. Your next prompt now becomes, all right, now based on this segmentation, generate for me emails to be able to target this audience. Here's the event title, event name, event details, and I want you to personalize based on their segmentation. So now if demographics are separated, it was able to personalize this messaging accordingly. If the time zone's different, you can actually provide a different context. If the role of that segment's different, like some people are leaders, some people are developers, some people are engineers, it would then personalize the message based on the segment that it sees. So that's the second level. Now, the third level is now finalizing and closing things out. This is where you can have that feedback form created, or based on this output email you see, create for me a 5 touch point sequence of sending this out across a 1-month period to be able to target accordingly. Now it's create for your strategy of how do you properly target this audience based on this data you shared. Now, if I put all this into one prompt, you see the challenge it would face. But now if I break it down into these 3 steps as an example, these are 3 different prompts. But what happens is the value comes in, it's using the output from the first prompt into the second one, and the output from the second one into the third one. What you have done essentially is taken single individual prompts at a very high quality level, make them bridge and work together to be able to give you a final output, strategy, documentation, content, and everything else in a level that's very high. Now you have reached a place where you can do this. You're able to now get significant value, output, and ROI out of the work that you do.
Awesome.
All right. Any questions?
Not
Some
yet.
of the other things you can also do when it comes to these prompt chaining and stuff is think modular wise, right? So for example, Stephanie's question about how do you know if it's too much? I'm sure our prompts also have style, tone, guide, voice, because a lot of brands are different. So we have to maintain brand identity. So you have, I want you to write in this tone, in this style. Here's the words to avoid. Here's the words that we use. So a lot of times, if you want to think modular wise, how do you create prompts that are specific for that use case? So you create a prompt that's only a style guide, and then you have something that's different. And then what happens is as you build, for example, your agents or workflows, instead of having everything in a single prompt, you now start calling these different modules to be able to build out. So you have a style guide that's separate. You have constraints that's separate. You have this that's separate. Instead of everything in a single prompt, the prompt has a specific instruction, but it's calling these different nodes and modules to be able to get the output that you need. All right, we look at business use cases across different industries. What are some of the areas that actually AI has, one, already disrupted, and two, it's actually leading towards very good value and ROI as well? One is content generation. We all have done this with different things. It is still today one of the main areas where content has been produced across the industry as well. So when it comes to blogs, social media, you look at reports, a lot of things are generated by AI as well. The one thing to call out here is I believe Google also started flagging things if they are fully AI generated, and they might not come up fully in the search results as well. So be mindful when you do content generation using AI, it's perfectly fine. But again, prompting and getting a good output where you use the right SEO, where you sound human as well, and you're able to make sure it's connecting to the right audience, it would give you better results as well across the board instead of something that's very generic or AI generated that it's not giving you the output that's expected. To customer support, when it comes to frequently asked questions, chatbots today, one of the biggest companies, a lot of companies are, for example, coming up, they're just adding chatbot on a site. Someone can start chatting with it. It goes to the internal database and the knowledge base that exists. It supports a lot of companies as well to be able to get to customers quickly and answers them fastly. Script generation as well. Today, a lot of these companies now, instead of having these humans go through so much of different context, if they want to standardize something, AI quickly allows you to generate the scripts and be able to move forward. Operations efficiency, this is a big lift for many companies. How do you optimize your current processes? How do you analyze the data? Before, we used to have a lot of data engineers and data analysts within our teams, and it used to take a lot of time for them to analyze certain data, look at 4 to 5 different sources, and then be able to come up with those patterns. You still have those data analysts and engineers, but now your value is so much better because one, you can get it much quicker. AI can analyze that data for you and produce for you some pattern that you might not even see. So it's always good to use in terms of operational efficiency. Other areas, marketing and sales, again, big lift. There's so many companies that have come up targeting specific marketing and sales teams when it comes to SDRs and sales development reps, and how do we elevate their performance and optimize their workload as well as marketing now. A lot of ad copies, nurturing emails, these are all created. Before, it used to take so much time creating emails, reaching out to people and sending out. But today, for example, I can generate 10,000 emails within a matter of a day and be able to send those out as well. You can scale that fairly quickly. And then research and development. Again, when it comes to hypothesis generation, writing reports, reviewing, doing a lot of research, these are different areas that AI is used across the different industry as well, and be able to use these use cases. One thing that you can do within your team is when you collect these use cases, I would start categorizing them to be able to know where to focus most on. And you will see a theme emerge from those use cases you collect. And based on those themes, you'll be able to then prioritize accordingly. And you'll see it's like content generation, operations efficiency are two big ones. Marketing and sales is three as well. These are 2 to 3 that are very large. They are very large in terms of category, and many use cases will fall mainly under these scenarios. Then you'll be able to now focus on strategy into where does it make sense to spend the time in.
Irfaan, you made a very pertinent point that content may get flagged as AI generated, and a lot of platforms, including LinkedIn, right, is actually pushing your posts down if it thinks that the content is AI generated. The irony is that a lot of human generated content is also being misflagged as AI generated. Right. So, if you are creating any posts and if you're writing it on your own and you think that it might not get flagged, there is a likelihood it might. So just run it through a check or something, make sure that it doesn't get flagged, right? To make sure your reach increases. Just wanted to add that, Irfaan.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Because that's something that I think the industry is facing today, right? Even something's not AI generated, it's still flagged. And it's something that we can't get perfect yet. I think that's one thing within AI. There's a constant learning process and a journey we're going through. Even there's companies who are out there today where I'm signing contracts with as a third-party vendor who we're actually having them do some things or provide a certain value. Even though they claim to do something, we're still finding out that they're also failing at things and they're trying to figure it out as we are too. So I think across the industry, we see that common theme that everyone's learning. And this is one area where even a company like LinkedIn, Google, and these who have the resources and the time and the bandwidth and the funding for it, they're still facing and grappling with the same challenges as well. I would love to hear thoughts or ideas into how do you avoid being flagged, or how do you use AI but improve the output that you're providing so you're not flagged or being pushed down from a content standpoint?
So I'll say that my content does get flagged often as AI generated, even when I have written the whole thing myself. Okay. One of the things that I've started doing is putting it into Claude and asking Claude to ensure that it doesn't sound AI generated. Right, and that usually fixes the problem, right? And then I make some edits on top of it, so that it kind of still retains my voice. Rohit, you had some inputs? I see you have raised your hand.
Yeah, no, Irfaan, thank you, and Chandrapali, as always, thank you. I recently came across something about this because imperfection in AI writing is the new standard of the highlight, because it's every content we are in the state where we are with content overload. So how do you, in my hospitality and travel, I always talk about that. How do you remain authentic, or how do you create a high trust brand in that your original voice and your imperfections are the asset that stands you apart, rather than a well-polished, because everything is so well-polished, the persona, the everything. So, where are the nuances? And now I think the new way, even the voice fillers and everything else, that is more authentic, because you know that you are a real human and you're not talking to some bot or somebody, it's coming from the heart, or it's coming from your own, not just polished, well sequenced, each comma and everything. Like, we know that it's not happening.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Rohit. I think we've seen that across the board. There was one idea I had. I haven't tested this, but after I generate AI content, I want to intentionally make spelling mistakes and post it. I want to see what happens, because that's the way that I'm thinking. Listen, if AI wouldn't make a spelling mistake, everyone knows that. They'll see a perfect post. But you purposely make a mistake and you include that
in your prompt.
Yeah, makes sense. Because what I do today is, because I've had enough conversations with the models that it now kind of knows me and knows how I speak and knows how I think. So what I do when I want to generate an output, I literally tell it that, hey, think like me, speak like me, and give me an output that I would say. So that gives you more human conversational tone. That's almost how I speak as well. So I've done that to be able to get a very good result in a human conversational. But yeah, being able to, and if someone reads it, oh wait, there's a spelling mistakes, they'll call it out right away, but I don't know if that helps.
See, I've had success because I've created a GPT for pretty much everything. So for LinkedIn also, I have a GPT that created with my own writing. So, and I have turned off the web. So it's basically using my thoughts, my everything, and then I'm taking that and refining it.
Poonam, did you have something to add? You raised your hand.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think a lot of it Rohit already said, but I'll add my rhetorics. Basically, I would never let anyone run my life, let alone AI. So, I mean, I don't have much experience on writing, complete writing, as in posts and everything. I use it to, generate some very minimal context to what I want to write. And then I add that into my own writing. So it's always, I don't know if you have read some of my posts, they are very rhetoric, like conversational. But at the same time, I think that would be my suggestion as such for people writing the LinkedIn post, that if you want to make that personal, actually make that personal. Write it in your own conversational manner that it seems like it is coming out of your heart, not just Cloud's heart or anything like that. So, make it as a tool to actually that supports you, that helps you out writing, rather than having it, completely take over and generate some stuff that sounds like you. And I kind of have exactly opposite way of doing what Irfaan is doing on the model itself. I'll never tell it like how I sound, write it like how I sound. I'd say like do it opposite. In case if actually understands my language and the way I speak or the way I write things, I'll absolutely delete that thread to like don't have any more of my memory. Just do it the way you want to do it, and then I'll see what exactly it has written, and then just transform it. So I'm kind of like in a totally opposite band of people who want to use it as much, but do not want to give it the authority or power to actually replicate myself. That's my sense, 2 cents.
Interesting, Poonam, because let me kind of give you a sense of how I've been using, right? Specifically for idea generation. There are times when, like the most recent post, right, from Lovable that I posted earlier today, the Lovable hackathon statistics. So what I did was I had thoughts and I had analysis based on the outcome of the numbers that were shown out of the Lovable hackathon. I have my own ideas. I will write a post based on my ideas, and now I want that post to have substantiating information from the industry or based on trends and things like that. So before Perplexity, I used to take information from websites, pump it into the GPT or Claude and ask it to do it. With Perplexity, I just asked Perplexity with my article saying, give me the supporting trends, right? So Perplexity does that, adds those bits of supporting information, and then I combine the two and create my article, right? So the thoughts are mine, but when I want things to substantiate what I'm saying, I get the information and all of that and try to then club it together. Yeah. Once I put things together, there are times when the flow of information is not very well structured, right? There are probably related ideas that are interspersed with something which is unrelated. So again, I ask the AI to make sure that the flow, right, is more natural, right? And because when you're reading your own stuff, you sometimes miss that.
Yeah, one of the things which it just came to my mind, remember those fill in the blanks kind of forms, right?
Yes.
Where you add some substantial, I mean, you get that structure and some information that is concrete information. If obviously you want to remember the percentage and how the market is and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But how the flow is that you can totally control what you want to exactly convey as a story. So the story is completely yours.
Yes.
And I think it'll take 10 years for AI to flag my post. I don't know how it flags the post, but I'll make sure it never does it. But yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good perspective. Thanks for sharing, Poonam. I think one thing I've told people as well, I'm like, listen, AI will do a lot of good things for you. It will reach a stage where, or we're reaching a stage where it, for example, can automate a lot of things. However, there's something about human intelligence that I believe cannot be surpassed. That what makes it very unique and different. So AI can do so much. However, it also requires a human to do a good input of it too. At the same time, I tell a lot of people, I'm like, before going to AI directly, whatever your work is in terms of content generation, writing an email, doing marketing, doing strategy, take a moment to pause and think what you're trying to do yourself in terms of have a high level plan or idea of yourself before you go into AI. Because the way I see it is an assistant in your right hand to be able to do so much. Yeah. But the initial thought and that value comes from you. So a lot of times what I do, like if I build a strategy and how I'm thinking of a few things, I have like literally papers on my table and I start drawing things out, right? I have this mind map or I start drawing out, okay, how I'm thinking of these different segments or so in general, I'm basically doing an outline and then it goes into AI. I'm like, all right, this is how I'm thinking. This is how I'm building. Now improve this for certain use cases. And I've seen what that does is you're more confident into what you're producing versus just letting AI do it.
Okay, absolutely. One more weird example before I mute myself. And I can see, Rohit, what you're saying. I'll reply to you in the chat. But that weird comment is, remember everybody, I mean, like what marriage is all about, two people. And every time you hear those therapists and everybody saying like, don't lose your identity in the marriage. So if you're getting married with AI, right, just make sure you remain the individual and keep your identity while you're using AI. So you can live a good, happy married life. But yeah. Okay, I'll mute my.
Okay. Thanks, Poonam, for that. And Malik, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for all this insightful discussion. I do resonate with most of the things what you guys say. One thing I should actually say that like I started writing in 2016, so before like all these things comes in. But now I see like everyone is an expert when I read like LinkedIn posts or like blogs of people. And I do think that it's kind of like democratized people's views and ways of thinking. I mean, I have basically switched away myself from my own writing to use AI as a partner in writing, and I do like collect like wide range of information, and then I can, strategize in such a way that I could get like an amazing post which I would never ever think of writing. I mean, that's like, the big winning point of using AI as your partner. And the other thing is I recognize is that like the way you could think of laterally and more strategic thoughts, you would never actually come within your within your own thinking, because we do as a human do have a limited working capacity and we may not even able to think beyond certain level. So what the AI writing helps is basically first it kind of like help me in identifying sources, and second thing is that I could ask more and more prompt, and I do sometimes have difficulties where to stop it because it actually offers me wide range of strategic options and thoughts, and it kind of like very difficult for me to put through everything in a compiled manner. And even I do start recognizing that, oh, AI is like much bigger expert than I do, even though I may have a subject expertise on a certain aspect. So I kind of now don't really much take into consideration when people say, oh, this is an AI written one, this is a human written one. When you can actually maximize your opportunity to create like wonderful content even using AI, why bother, right? So same thing like I used to see like when people, the recruiters looking for cover letters, they say like, if it's AI written, like we're not looking at it. Like, and I'm thinking myself, like, if I would apply from 200 jobs, I might get like 1 or 5 interviews. Why would I sit like 3 and 4 hours and writing a cover letter? I'm going to do it in AI. If you hire me, hire me. If not, I move on. So that's my motto of life now. And which kind of like helps me out. Like, I'm not saying I'm looking for a job, but generally I know from people, like they say like Sunday, in 2 hours, they could send like 500 application, which is amazing. Like, right? I mean, of course, it's AI written. You can kind of like fine tune. Why stigmatize or why deviate ourselves when you have powerful LLMs which can really build amazing content, and all you need to do is fine tune it and personalize so that you can even, polish your way of thought on it. So that's my viewpoint.
Thank you for sharing, Malik. Yeah, I think there's so many different perspectives, and it's interesting to see because everyone does use it differently as well and think of it differently. But I think there's some things that we see emerging, like for example, the interviews and resume reviews and stuff that comes out. Like now, many companies are using ATS models anyway. They're reviewing and flagging and filtering applications through their AI models too. So I do a lot of career coaching, and I help folks, for example, improve their resumes. And I do tell them, I'm like, listen, look at the job description, look at the keywords that you're looking for. You need to plug those into your resume. It's as simple as that. I get it. You want to make sure, obviously, one, make sure it's true, it's accurate. But if there are certain keywords they're looking for, cross-functional collaboration, stakeholder management, these specific coding tools, make sure those are called out, because when I speak to these recruiters, they're like, listen, we have 1,000 applications coming in a week's time frame. I can't review 1,000 of them. So run into the system, it now flags the top 100. Now I have time to filter through these. So a lot of times I think there's 2 ways that we're seeing it used. One, from a systematic standpoint, the companies are moving in this direction where we have to use it and play by the system as well. And there's certain areas where I think from a human standpoint, some prefer looking at AI and, okay, this is good enough for me, I'm moving on. Some go, okay, wait, this was AI generated, I want a more human tone. I think it's in terms of preference as well. Right? So we'll see a lot of different preferences and choices that people have, and that's how things will emerge and have this level of diversity within AI as well. So thank you all for sharing, and thanks for all the inputs as well. Marianne, you had a question about cheat code to ask the model to give the prompt, or do you have a standard prompt formula? I'd like to. So there is a lot of standard prompts that exist. I can share one after the class as well. The cheat code is technically letting the AI model know to create for you a prompt, essentially. Now, there's so many ways to do it. You can give it a prompt to create a prompt, or you can actually talk to it and tell it to write a prompt with some level of context that you would like to do. And it will create your prompt that you can use then on the output itself.
Irfaan, if you could go back to the slide where you are given the structure, the role, task, and all of that.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So, Marianne, to kind of add to what Irfaan has already said, one way of getting an AI to generate the prompt for you is give it this framework, right? And say, generate a prompt that follows this structure for this purpose that I have. And this works best in Claude, little bit in ChatGPT, and similarly hit and miss in Perplexity, is ask any questions before you generate the final prompt. So let's say if you have not clarified on the role or the task or anything, it's going to ask you for those details, and it's going to start filling in and fleshing out those details before generating the final prompt for you. So, cheat code there again is you can create a small Claude project, right? If you use Claude most of the time, or a custom GPT, if you use GPT most of the time, or similar in Perplexity, right? Which has this set of instructions already fed in, and then give it your idea. It's going to generate the prompt for you immediately without you having to, copy paste large prompts back into it. On that aspect, I did want to query you, Irfaan, right, on one aspect here. A lot of places I see role being referred to as the role the AI needs to play.
Mm-hmm.
In my use, I have experience that when I ask the AI to play a particular role, the chances of hallucination increase. Versus the hack that I use is I give it the perspective that I want. So I give the role that I am going to be, right? So like you have mentioned that I am the marketing head, right? Or I am generating marketing. So instead of telling the AI, you are the marketing head or you are the marketing guru, I say, I am a marketing guru and therefore write it the way I would as a marketing guru. Right? And there I have seen a slight reduction in terms of hallucination. Right? The quality of hallucination has improved much, right, in the recent iterations of the models. So for the earlier ones, this used to help a lot. Right? So I wanted to add that quickly.
Yeah.
And one more thing I just wanted to add, right, is you can give a very good structured prompt if you want a specific output. I also use AI to do a lot of brainstorming. And if you want to do brainstorming, actually give it the least structured prompt possible. Right? If you want to do, so I'm kind of tying it back to what you just said, right? You have to define the objective of your prompting, right? If your objective is to get a very structured output, give it a structured prompt. If your objective is to, kind of go all over the place, right? Like Malik was also saying, right? And brainstorm things, give it a vague prompt and see what it digs out.
Yeah, very good input. I appreciate that. I think that's key. I've seen it work both ways in terms of acting a role, or I tell it that, hey, I'm this, continue doing this. But that's a very good call out. I think Claude is a very good one to use. What I do in terms of the tools is I use ChatGPT or OpenAI for assistant. A lot of tasks as assistant would do, I would use OpenAI for that. When I'm doing very good writing that maintains a lot of memory and gives good output in terms of writing itself, Claude is what I use. Research, Perplexity, I found it do very well there as well. So I think it depends on your task that you're doing. These different models would give you those specific results as well.
Hey, I think Rohit was next in the queue. So Rohit, the stage is yours.
Go ahead, Rohit.
No, Irfaan, like the stuff that you were saying, I think I'm just going from what beyond the prompting is the fact that, like, when you talked about applying for jobs and everything else, the industries around us, I don't think they're able to keep up with the pace, just like we are struggling because what's the point of writing a cover letter when you have my whole LinkedIn history as to what? Yeah. People are not, being authentic. I have people reaching out to me without even reading my profile, whether it matches to them. So that's where I think this is going wrong, where you have not really looked into, and you're still antiquated that you want me to write a cover letter for what? You want a resume for what? My LinkedIn is my resume. I'm maintaining it on a consistent basis. So I think there is a lot of evolution. And to the last point, what Chandrapali was saying and you guys were alluding to, one of the guys, I have it on my 2 weeks ago, I posted on one of my LinkedIn posts, the two people that are like Jeremy Utley from Stanford and Joshua Worley from Mindstone. And that's the one that he doesn't use. Joshua and Jeremy were talking in a conversation with that they don't use it as like in order to write emails or basically he's using it to critique sales emails, highlight missed opportunities, and which is resulting in significant business. It's I think it's a whole mindset that how you use it as whether it's brainstorming or as a coach, and use it more as a co-pilot rather than a tool to just do stuff for you.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Rohit.
I think Poonam's next.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to add on that, the thought about like where to do what exactly. And one of the things which I've I mean, it might change in time, but you don't really, I mean, it depends on how much you actually trust AI or trust any tool as such. So if you're just using one single tool and getting the information out and then processing it and doing whatever and then sending it through, I mean, LinkedIn is fine. I don't know how many people actually read those posts, but if you're sending it to, say, for example, some applications or government agencies and things like that, or a client, you would want to verify all that information way ahead and understand that this is actually correct, right? So in that case, AI becomes like 50% or maybe 60% where it is helping you out doing that work. Now, to come to the context back to the where we are doing the search, I would say I wouldn't just use ChatGPT or won't just use Perplexity or won't just use Gemini. If I have, I mean, usually what I try to do is to get that same query answered by multiple different models and then pick that up and merge and then see how it goes. So this is one of the suggestions which I had. That's it.
Yeah, I've seen that work very well as well, where you do multiple and then pick the best output and kind of proceed from there, or take the different ones and then kind of because everyone will have its own nuances and they all have their own benefits and the output of the way they've been trained. I think the best way is to leverage all of them and get an output. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Poonam.
Not even pick it, actually merge it if you want to, because there's Gemini has like really nice way to, phrase it. I have seen. So merging has worked a lot.
Is better.
Yeah.
Hey, let's see. All right, so we went through prompt chaining to be able to use prompt in sequence to get the most valuable output out there. We went through business use cases as well. Now, when we look at team integrations, I think one of the biggest questions we face today is we can prompt well, we know how to do it, but there's a lot of team members or within our companies that may not be that good in prompting as well. So how do you help them? So some of the things that I've done that have helped a lot of teams is one, centralizing a prompt library and sharing best practices. So I think we had also a couple of questions within our chat window is, can you share this prompt? Can you share this prompt? If we have prompts that are actually working very well, and there's so many out there today, but if something works for you, what I do is I categorize them into certain personas or tasks as well. So if you're doing marketing, here's 5-6 different prompts that have been tested, they're ready to go. And you as a team member don't need to go and reinvent the wheel or prompt yourself. Just use it as a template and then refine it as needed. So I've created a lot of these libraries and templates that actually helped a lot of folks start prompting and getting better results from what they're doing as well. Number 2, training workshops. Just like this masterclass, I've done prompting masterclass and then AI agentic high-level overview within the teams as well to help them understand, listen, we're all moving towards the direction of using AI as an instant. Are we there where it's going to replace jobs? I think it depends that conversation into how we context it, into what kind of jobs and how long it's going to take. That's an open forum today. But those who use AI, for example, have a significant advantage versus those who don't. So being able to embrace the AI evolution that's taking place, be able to use it in a way that actually helps you is something that a lot of leaders are asking of their teams as well. We saw the Shopify email that came out. Fiverr CEO came out with an email as well. That listen, it's almost standard practice now that we're expecting you to use AI in your work. So before, it was almost like, oh, I can't. We were hesitant initially, I believe, using AI and using everything for reports. Today, we're almost expected to generate everything out of AI in terms of what we're trying to do and make sure it's obviously validated. And then feedback loops. This is key because you generate stuff from AI or use AI for certain things. But again, there's hallucinations, a lot of challenges and limitations that exist. So being able to have a feedback loop to get feedback from team members, from leaders, from yourself, and be able to improve the quality and iterate as you, I think makes the difference moving forward instead of just sticking with a prompt that was generated, let's say 3 months ago, and now everyone uses it. Because there comes a point in time where you see, based on the output results, analytics that you track, how to improve your prompt and get the team's results better as well. Other area is when we look at a lot of use cases we receive from our teams, and everyone wants to use AI for marketing, sales, leadership, reporting, analytics. There's all these use cases. What I do is I analyze the ROI as estimate before picking a use case to invest in. What I mean by that, when I do a discovery session, I ask the team members, walk me through your day-to-day life or day-to-day task, and I draw a journey map or a process map of what they do. So I generate these many emails, this is the segmentation I use. Here's my manual effort that takes place for me to complete this content. Here's the ad that I design. So I capture that information and be able to understand, at least from a high level, how long it takes, how frequent they do this task, and what is the current manual effort today. Based on these inputs I have and the pain points that I see, I then analyze if I had to automate this task for this team or for this team member, what would it take for in terms of automation? What tools would I use? And what is the output that I see? And based on that, it gives me a rough estimate of understanding, okay, if this team member is spending this much time and I'm able to do this and save this much reduction in time, effort, this is where I decide and then propose and recommend, for example, to leadership or make a decision of being able to move forward with the use case or not. A simple example, if someone tells me that, listen, I spend once a week doing a report that takes me 30 minutes, or once a month that takes me a report that takes me 2 hours once a month. Listen, if it takes you 2 hours and you're doing it once a month, keep spending that 2 hours once a month. I'm not going to invest all these resources and time and tools to automate something that takes 2 hours in 1 month. However, when someone comes and tells me that, listen, we have 4 team members or 10 team members, we generate these many emails across 1 month, and we're generating 100 emails every 2 days for these many segments. This is how much time it takes. Okay, that's a clear use case where we see significant output. Doesn't mean the first one's not going to happen, but in terms of priority, these would be significantly different. And now when a lot of companies and senior leadership is looking at these results and they're trying to figure out, okay, we have funding, we're able to do AI, where do I invest in? This is a clear way to be able to, one, delineate which use cases to target, how do you prioritize, and then show quick wins and results, and then be able to move forward from there. I think that's one of the biggest challenges many companies are facing is, okay, we want to do AI, but how do we do it? Where do we do it? Who do we use it for? So you as an AI expert, and when we go to these companies and work with our teams, one, upskilling them and helping them, and then doing discovery sessions, really understanding their pain points and the problem, because technically they're your customers. Or from a customer standpoint, if it's external facing, being able to understand the problems and be able to solve it and see how you can do a current state and a future state with AI will give you a very good use case, process map, direction, and recommendation into making a data-driven decision and put funding behind it as well. All right, when we look at limitations, again, AI can do a lot of things, but again, there's a lot of bias that we see. It reflects the training data. There was a case study that was done when it comes to employee and demographics and how results within resumes were biased based on a certain demographic as well. So again, the training data matters, and we do see that as well. So be mindful of these limitations as we use AI. We have seen hallucinations also take place. A lot of times it will make up links that don't exist. It will make up, for example, studies and results and numbers and statistics that don't exist. One of the things what I've done is every time I ask for a result from AI, I do ask for providing the source as well. So based on all this stuff, also provide me the sources where you get this from. So now what it does is once it gives me certain context, statistics, analysis, or data that I'm looking for, it will then give me a link to it. So I can click on the link and actually go to the actual site or the blog or the article or the case study to be able to validate that this statistic makes sense, is actually true from a certain publishing company and not just hallucinating. So that's one thing you can do. Ask every time you're doing something that you want to make sure is accurate or there's statistics, numbers involved. Do ask the AI to give you the sources, and it will give you the links it points out to as well. And then over-reliance, reducing critical thinking. Again, I think the biggest question then becomes today, many kids are using this in school. We use it for work. It's great, but there is a limit, a level of critical thinking that humans have as well. Being able to not be too dependent, over-reliant, that you forget to think on your own, I think is a big problem for the future as well, right? So that's why I think AI heavily relies on the input you give it that determines the output. and the input is a human today, and that matters where, how you're able to drive and direct the AI to do a certain thing. So keep that in mind. And then again, there's no AI conversations without having ethical concerns as well. There's a privacy issue. A lot of data is being shared. Potential of misusing AI for different use cases. We are able to see, for example, you can create a video today that looks real, but it's completely fake, right? How do we see that play around the next 5-10 years? It would be very interesting to see things that emerge. And I'm sure a lot of us have probably seen videos that we feel it's real, but then we find out, oh, it's actually fake, or it was AI generated. So I think what's going to happen is the landscape is going to get so muddy and so gray that it'll be difficult to discern what's truth from false, what's AI versus what's real, because that's how good AI is getting. So be mindful of these limitations, question things that you see, question things that you read, and know that, wait, let me think and let me judge this myself. Let me not take everything at face value. Let me challenge the status quo for a second and then think before, for example, doing something. I'm sure a lot of us have seen people share things that are completely fake, right? But from our standpoint, who are almost, pioneers or leading to a place where we're helping, the market and the landscape move forward, we should be advocates to be able to, question these things, understand the limitations, and be able to drive in a direction that makes us and the world a better place. And then some of the tips that you could use in terms of the different prompts and tools with the teams and your own companies as well would be prompt libraries and tools. So centralizing storage, keeping the prompts organized by category. Everyone can use it as a reference. Having version control, trying to track it, trying to improve it, and then iterating as you go as well. And at the end, sharing helps significantly. You become better when you share, and knowledge increases when you share as well. So a lot of times when you're able to distribute your prompts, that works. If this works very well for you, 50 team members can use it. Please share as much as possible. Let them use it. Let them provide feedback. Let them help you iterate it as well. You'll be able to get significant value out of that as well. And you can enable other people. So many times you have seen, I've received a lot of questions, hey, how do I do this? How do I do this? Or people reaching out to you. If you're able to enable as many team members and allow them to do all these things, it frees up your time as well to work on more complex tasks, work on things that you need to work on as well. When we look at prompting for developers, this is a quick overview. Now, when we're able to prompt in natural language, now when you move next to in terms of development, agentic workflows, this is where you're able to now integrate multiple tools. And you have API integration with direct models access. You have parameter optimizing when you have the temperature and everything else you can change. You can chain outputs, which we spoke about, the multi-step workflows, and then automated the refinement of those prompts as well. And then you have validation loops. You have a checker, and then that loop comes back in to be able to see if this is validated and it's producing the outputs it's expecting. And then you'll have tool augmentation as we move towards more automation workflows as well, where you have external services connecting and stuff like that. Speaking about agentic workflows and automating things like that, every time I receive a use case, I ask the team member to do one thing for me. Think of everything as a three-piece system, right? One would be your data. What is the sources of data that you need to be able to generate the output you're looking for? So tell me the sources of data and where those are, what systems do they exist in. Second is the thinking and the reasoning model. This is where your prompt comes in. This is where you're directing it and giving it guidance based on the data that's been provided. And the last piece is your tools, right? Where do you want the output to go? Is it in a Slack message? Is it an email? Is it directly in a website? Is it, so all that stuff is now generated. So now you have a trigger, you have data, you have a thinking and a reasoning model, and then you have tools that actually orchestrate the entire thing. So when you think of building agents and you think of building automation, at the minimum, look at for these three things and ask teams or team members to be able to give you this input. With that, now you're able to do so much more because you have enough information to be able to determine flows. When we look at business users, for example, templates, this is where we're sharing pre-built structures for common tasks, draft me an email, marketing, summary, research briefs. A lot of times team habits, you are kind of become an advocate and a leader to be able to help the teams as well. You have shared libraries, training sessions, office hours, even a simple 30-minute office hours once every 2 weeks. You will see how significantly it helps people as well, and all the questions that they have. Many people are also, for example, freaking out at a point where they're not doing enough with AI. They're like, oh my God, so many people are doing with AI. So many companies are launching. Everyone's talking about it, but I'm stuck here and I don't know if I'm doing good enough because I'm only using ChatGPT. So I think it's on us also to be able to help these team members understand that, listen, even using ChatGPT alone is a good start, right? Let me help you now become better. So when you take that approach and help others as well and be able to remove that anxiety and nervousness from them, and be able to let them know, listen, I'm also learning and I'm also going through this journey. No one's 100% perfect here. We also seen companies that are being released also have a lot of limitations, and the product that they're launching is not able to do what they're claiming to do, because many of them have a UI fancy face, but they're just sticking a model in the back. So all these things are now starting to emerge into actually where are we in this AI revolution that's taking place, right? IBM fired 8,000 people because AI was going to replace them. Only a year later, they hired, I think, X amount of people to actually maintain and run those agents. So there's a lot of shift that's happening, and there's a lot of flux that's in place. So there's a lot of team members who have this nervousness and anxiety as well. So just make sure as advocates of AI and be able to help, to be able to bring the team up together as well. And then at the end, there's some level of governance structure, right? I mean, today we have 50 prompts and everyone's going to be different. How do you put governance structures in place? How do you have data? PII is a big discussion today. We can use all these tools. We would like to use it, but there's a lot of PII data and personal identifier information about our customers, about data that exists. We can't share that directly with models. Companies have policies and privacy and legal laws. There's a lot of automation tools and orchestration where they're requiring them to integrate directly with our internal Salesforce data, internal customer data. But now there's companies' hesitations. So you as an AI advocate, and what we do is we have to, one, look at the agreements are in place. There's data privacy agreements. There's a lot of questions that we can ask during that sessions with the vendors to be able to see what's your security standard, how do you actually use our data, do you train your model with the data, are you just an orchestration tool? These are all valid questions. Also, when you use AI, be mindful of your company's policy being able to share PII data or not, and be able to track all that as well. Because the last thing you want is doing something and getting in trouble. All right. Common mistakes. A lot of times this is very common to see across different prompting areas that we see, being very vague in terms of instructions. There are some use cases, I think, as Chandrapoli mentioned, if you're brainstorming, leave it open. Let it work with you, right? If there's clear direction, give it as specific as your intent as you can as well. Information overload, too many requirements in a single prompt. We discussed this earlier. You're able to break it down into different prompts and then sequence the chain. It gives you a better output as well. The quality will also be better. Inconsistent format, so mixing styles and structures, and then copy-paste thinking. So not adapting prompts to specific needs. Someone created a prompt, it works well for them, you take and paste it for your use case. What I would do is take the prompts that exist, use them as the first iteration in a standard, and then make sure you adapt and iterate and make it better for the specific use case you are trying to target. So it's always good to be able to make sure that you're doing what you're asking the prompt to do in terms of the results. And when we look at mindset when it comes to prompting, always remember that your first prompt and the 10th prompt is always in a way that you want to test and see the results and then improve that accordingly. If you take the first prompt, get an output, and you're good with that, you'll see the results is not as good. So the mindset you should go in when creating a prompt and testing prompts is, listen, I'm ready to test this over and over to be able to make sure I get the results that I need from a success standpoint. Iterative refinement. Many times we need to make sure we're iterating these things. We can build an agent quickly. We can build a prompt quickly. The time and cycle spent now is to validate the quality that comes out. So from an expectation standpoint, as you build an agent, as you build your prompt, always keep in mind that the initial step of building the prompt, keeping it ready, building an agent and automating a workflow, these are easy and it could be done fairly quickly. The majority of the time is spent now into iterating, testing, and improving the quality of the output. So when you do distribute the time and know how much time it takes to complete these tasks, the latter one does take much longer to be able to result in what you're looking for. And then have an experimental mindset, right? I think in this call alone, we saw how many different ideas, opinions, perspective, prompts that actually have been suggested. That just shows you how deep this thing goes and how experimental this is as well, right? So there's new approaches we're learning, new models that are coming out, new ways of prompting. 2 years ago, prompting was completely different than what it is today. Everyone's coming out with a different structure. And that's a good thing, I believe. It allows us to experiment and see what works best for us and the model itself based on the use case that we have. And then collaborative development, leveraging different perspectives that we have seen, working with others, getting different ideas, I think puts you in a very good place as well. And at the end, from a resource standpoint, I think communities are a very good way to quickly learn, collaborate, and grow. Just like this Perplexity AI fellow that we have, I believe the amount of people we have involved, engaged, working with each other, and to be able to do what we do today, I think it's a big unlock in a way that didn't exist before, right? You have to go read books, you have to go look at online classes, you can do all these things that exist today too. But by just collaborating in 60 minutes, you're able to get this much output versus in the past. And then use the tools. The best way to learn AI is actually using it, right? Try the same prompt across different models, see what they do, try different use cases. There's so many models out there. There's so many, tools out there in terms of Lovable, Versal. There's so many things that are coming out. The best thing you can do is test and see what it does and see if you need to use it. You don't want to use it, but at least continuous learning should be the mindset that we should go with. And then at the end, it's practice. The more you practice, the more time you spend, the more you'll see iterations, improvement, and you will yourself develop some kind of a mastery on certain niches and be able to say that, listen, I do this very well and I can replicate it instantly, very fast, and I can help someone do this better as well. If that's the case, that comes during practice and becoming better as well. So overall, that's the intent and the plan, and that's how I think of prompting and engineering itself. And I would say the goal would be to become a very good prompt engineer, one, then helping others and adapt and prompt as well. But the next piece would then be, how do you automate these prompts into flows, into workflows and agentic AI to be able to remove yourself from tasks that you know for sure can be completed manually, so you can focus on more complex tasks that your mind would require you to do.
This was amazing, Irfaan. I mean, I would say this is one of the best sessions on prompting that I've had attended, right? A lot of sessions talk about a lot of, prompt structures and all of that. No fluff, very solid, very useful information. Irfaan, thank you so much for doing this with us. And like